Hello, dear Libra. What if I told you that the balance you've been trying to hold together for the past 15 years is finally being restored, not through struggle, but through divine timing? You didn't land here by chance. This message, this moment, and this energy, were all aligned perfectly to meet you right now. Welcome to Zodiac Whisper Tarot, and today's deep horoscope reading created just for you. This isn't just another video. This is a doorway. A sacred space. A whisper from the universe that says, "You've done enough. Now, let me take it from here." For far too long, Libra, you've carried the weight of keeping the peace, silencing your truth to avoid conflict, sacrificing your well-being to make sure everyone else felt whole. And while the world may have praised your grace, only you know how exhausting it's been behind closed doors. But today, something changes. You are stepping into two of the most powerful days of the year, May 18th and 19th, 2025, and I'm here to guide you through what the universe is about to reveal. This is your moment of realignment. A time to stop trying to balance everyone else's chaos and finally find peace within yourself. You see, when your soul has been yearning for clarity, the universe doesn't send you a sign in neon lights, it sends you synchronicities. And this video is one of them. Maybe you've been having strange dreams lately. Maybe you've felt unusually emotional, disconnected, or deeply reflective. That's not random. That's energetic preparation. Something is moving through your spirit. A reset. A divine correction. And when Libra receives this kind of cosmic recalibration, it doesn't just change your week, it changes your trajectory. I want you to stay with me, not just as a viewer, but as a soul being witnessed. As someone who's finally ready to receive without guilt, to rest without shame, and to step into a future that doesn't ask you to break yourself into pieces just to be accepted. But first, tell me this, Libra, what pulled you here today? Was it a feeling in your chest? A number you kept seeing? A dream you couldn't shake? Whatever it was real. Trust that. And while you're here, I want to take a sacred moment to thank you. Truly. Your presence, your likes, your shares, your comments, they don't just support this channel, they build a family. Zodiac Whisper Tarot exists because of souls like yours who choose depth over noise, connection over consumption. And I am honored you're here. Now, before we go deeper, before we explore the 15-year energetic debt you've been unconsciously carrying, and the 20-year chapter of freedom, love, and clarity that's about to unfold, I ask just one thing. Drop an angel number in the comments. Maybe it's 111. Or 777. Maybe it's the first number that pops into your mind. Whatever it is, declare it. Claim your alignment. Because from this moment on, your life is no longer about holding everything together. It's about becoming whole, finally, for yourself. Stay with me until the very last second, Libra. What the universe is about to show you will change everything. For a long time, you've mastered the art of appearing calm even while chaos brewed inside. As a Libra, your soul came into this world carrying the sacred duty of balance, not the superficial kind that pleases others, but the soul-deep alignment between truth and compassion. Over the last 15 years, though, that mission may have turned into a quiet burden. You felt it in the relationships you've held together even when they were falling apart. You've seen it in the moments you bit your tongue to avoid conflict, even when your own needs were screaming to be heard. You've lived it through late nights spent second-guessing decisions, worrying if choosing yourself made you selfish. But what if I told you those years weren't lost? That they were quietly shaping something profound inside you? Energy isn't just something that moves around us, it's something we carry. And over these 15 years, you've been moving through energetic lessons meant to teach you where your peace ends and someone else's begins. Your natural gift is harmony, but harmony cannot exist without honesty. You are not here to hold everyone together at the expense of your soul. You are here to express a higher form of love, one that doesn't require erasing yourself to be seen as good. The coming days aren't just dates on a calendar. Energetically, May 18th and 19th mark a shift, a return. There is a frequency in the air now that invites you to shed the layers you wore for the sake of others and remember who you were before the people-pleasing began. This is what alignment feels like, not loud or dramatic, but a quiet exhale that tells you, you no longer need to perform. And just like that, you begin to breathe again. In numerology, the number 6 resonates deeply with Libra energy. It's the number of service, unconditional love, but also healing through boundaries. For you, it's not about swinging between extremes anymore, it's about anchoring into your center. You've likely seen how giving too much with no limit leaves you drained, while withholding too much leaves you lonely. Now, you're being guided to find that sacred middle space. A place where kindness doesn't mean self-erasure, and where saying no doesn't equal rejection, it simply protects what matters most. There's a quiet wisdom in that kind of balance. It's the wisdom Christ spoke of, not in judgment, but in discernment. To love your neighbor as yourself, you must first understand how to love yourself fully. That means honoring your energy, knowing your truth, and trusting your inner compass even when the world demands compromise. Peace was never supposed to feel like exhaustion. Real peace nourishes both sides of the scale, your heart and theirs. So if you've been questioning your worth, your place, or your purpose, let this be the gentle reminder, you are not broken. You are becoming. What feels like chaos is actually clarity trying to emerge. You've been planted, not buried. And now the roots you've grown quietly in the dark are strong enough to hold the weight of your becoming. This moment is not about going back to who you were, it's about coming home to who you really are. Balanced, yes, but also bold. Caring, yes, but also clear. From this point on, every choice you make in favor of your peace is a sacred act. And trust me, the universe is watching. And it's proud. Something subtle is already shifting within you. You may not have the words for it yet, but your body feels it. A sense of softness is rising in your chest, or perhaps a quiet ache in your throat when you try to speak your truth. That's not coincidence. As a Libra, your energy is intimately tied to the heart and the voice, not just in how you love others, but in how you express yourself when no one's watching. And during these 2 sacred days, May 18th and 19th, the universe is opening what we call an energetic gate, an alignment in the cosmic blueprint that invites you to pause and recalibrate, not out of urgency, but out of grace. This isn't a call to change everything overnight. It's an invitation to come home to yourself gently, by noticing what needs to be released in order for peace to truly land. For years you've been the safe place for others. You've been the one to listen, to hold, to compromise, even when your own needs were quietly unraveling. And because of your innate sensitivity, you've learned how to suppress your voice in the name of harmony. But harmony built on suppression isn't real peace, it's performance. And this energetic portal is a cosmic nudge, lovingly reminding you that your voice deserves to be heard, and your feelings deserve a seat at the table. When the heart chakra stirs, we often feel a sudden longing to cry, or moments of nostalgia, even without knowing why. When the throat chakra awakens, words begin to bubble up, stories we haven't told, boundaries we never set, truths we swallowed to keep the room calm. And while this can feel unfamiliar or even uncomfortable, it's actually a sign of your system realigning with your soul. Think of it like emotional spring cleaning. The things you've been holding on to, silent resentments, unspoken grief, unexpressed dreams, can't come with you into this next chapter. You're being asked to tune into what you've buried beneath your politeness. To make space for what's been silenced. This doesn't require confrontation or conflict. It only asks for presence. A few minutes of breathing in the morning. A quiet moment with your hand over your heart. A question as simple as, what am I ready to let go of? This is the real work of balance, not keeping everything together on the outside, but staying honest with yourself on the inside. The beauty of this process is that it doesn't demand perfection. It only requires permission. And as you soften into this self-honesty, you'll begin to notice how your energy shifts. You may find that conversations become easier. That clarity finds you instead of you chasing it. That people around you start responding to the version of you who no longer hides behind, "I'm fine." This shift is magnetic, not because you're trying harder, but because you're aligning deeper. And here's a gentle reminder passed down through the ages: you don't have to force your worth to be seen. When you begin to truly see yourself, the world reflects that recognition back to you. That's how divine balance works, not as a result of over-effort, but through embodied truth. So today, release the need to hold it all together. Breathe into your own heart. Drink your water slowly. Let your words come out, even if they're messy. You are not here to perform peace, you are here to become it. And this energetic doorway? It was always meant for you. Balance, for you, has never been a surface-level concept. It's not just about fairness or symmetry, it's a soul-deep calling that shows up in every decision you make, every relationship you enter, and every moment you stay silent just to keep the peace. As a Libra, you were born under the sign of the scales for a reason. Your journey has always been about navigating the subtle dance between grace and truth, between offering compassion and honoring boundaries. And now, the energy around you is asking for a recalibration, not because you failed, but because you're finally ready to release the weight of carrying everyone else's comfort on your shoulders. This week's tarot card, Justice, doesn't show up randomly. It arrives precisely when your soul needs to remember its own authority. The image of the goddess holding the scales is more than symbolism, it's a mirror of your inner world. It reflects the questions you've been silently asking. Am I allowed to choose myself without guilt? Can I speak up without causing harm? Is it okay to be both kind and clear? And the answer, gently but firmly, is yes. Balance isn't achieved by erasing your needs. It's found when you stop negotiating your truth in exchange for being liked. You may have been taught, implicitly or directly, that being good means being quiet. That love means being flexible. That peace is keeping things easy for everyone else, even if that means twisting yourself into something unrecognizable. But that's not balance. That's self-abandonment. And there's a difference. What the universe is whispering to you now is this: real peace starts when you start telling the truth. Not with aggression, not with judgment, but with grounded honesty. With tenderness. With presence. When you set boundaries, you're not rejecting others, you're respecting both sides. When you say no, you're not closing off connection, you're inviting more genuine alignment. And when you finally choose yourself, even if it ruffles feathers, you're doing the deepest healing work there is. Because every time you honor your voice, your value, your timing, you're showing the world what balanced love actually looks like. Not a love that disappears for others, but a love that includes you. This moment is not about swinging to the other extreme. It's not about becoming harsh or cold or shutting down your heart. It's about returning to the center. The sacred in between. The place where your empathy meets your discernment. The place where you stop apologizing for needing rest, space, or respect. The place where you trust that even if your truth disrupts someone else's comfort, you are still worthy of love and belonging. You don't have to prove your worth by being agreeable. You don't have to earn love by walking on eggshells. The people who are meant for you will not only accept your truth, they'll respect it. And those who can't, that's not a reflection of your value. That's simply clarity. And clarity, my dear Libra, is a gift. There's a lesson gently echoed in sacred teachings that reminds us, love your neighbor as yourself. But how can we love others well if we're constantly shrinking ourselves for their approval? True love, true balance, requires wholeness. And wholeness means integrating both your softness and your strength. So as you move through this energy, let yourself be honest, even if your voice shakes. Let yourself choose peace, not by pleasing others, but by aligning with your own core. Let justice be more than a card, let it be a return to your rightful place. Not the mediator, not the fixer, but the sovereign soul who knows that peace begins when truth and love finally sit at the same table. What you're entering now is not just a new season, it's a complete shift in how you relate to the world around you, especially when it comes to your material life. Libra, the cosmic balance you've long craved isn't just emotional or spiritual, it's physical too. Your finances, your work, your health, these are all mirrors reflecting how deeply you've internalized your worth. And for so long, you've given freely, your energy, your time, your attention, even when it came at the cost of your own well-being. But now the universe is asking you to pause and ask yourself a new question: am I open to receiving in equal measure? Financial balance for you isn't about accumulating just for the sake of security, it's about creating a flow where abundance supports your higher purpose. But true abundance doesn't come from overgiving or sacrificing yourself. It comes from alignment. From knowing when to say yes, and when to say, I've done enough. Giving without boundaries isn't generosity, it's depletion. And it's not selfish to receive. In fact, every time you allow yourself to receive with gratitude, you're keeping the energetic current alive. You're honoring the law of circulation: give, receive, and give again, but not from an empty cup. In your career, the patterns are shifting. The energy right now supports not just change, but evolution. If you've been feeling stuck, uninspired, or strangely disconnected from your work, that's not failure, it's guidance. Libra energy thrives in roles where harmony, aesthetics, diplomacy, or healing are present. This is a beautiful time to reevaluate whether the work you're doing truly reflects who you are becoming. You may feel drawn toward creativity, relationship-based careers, or even starting something that reflects your own values. The message is clear: if your work costs you your joy, it's too expensive. And your joy, Libra, is sacred. Your body has been whispering to you too, hasn't it? Subtle signs: fatigue that rest doesn't fix, tension in your shoulders, headaches, perhaps even a sense of emotional heaviness you can't quite explain. This isn't random, it's your nervous system asking for relief. The stress you've carried from keeping things together for everyone else has likely been living in your body far longer than you realized. And it's okay. You don't need to fix it all at once. But you do need to start listening. Small shifts matter. Chamomile tea in the evening. 10 minutes of mindful breathing. Gentle stretches before bed. Even looking in the mirror and saying, "I love you. I'm here for you." These small acts of care restore what chronic stress has taken away, your sense of peace within. And color, too, is medicine. Turquoise helps you unlock the heart and throat, softening your voice and reconnecting you to your truth. Blush pink holds your feminine energy like a prayer, gentle, forgiving, and safe. And silver gray, so often overlooked, helps you return to neutrality when your mind feels cluttered or overwhelmed. Let these colors into your space, your clothes, your rituals. Let them speak to you without words. The numbers surrounding you now are no accident either. Numbers like 6 and 24 speak of nurturing and emotional responsibility. 9 reminds you of endings with grace, and 11 of sacred intuition. 2 and 30 are calling for partnership and self-expression. If any of these numbers have been showing up lately, on clocks, receipts, or dreams, consider them a cosmic post-it note reminding you, you're being seen. And maybe the most important reminder of all is this: you do not have to fight to be loved. You never did. All you have to do is be you, unfiltered, unperformed, and whole. The more you honor your natural rhythm, the more life will rise up to meet you in perfect balance. Sometimes the biggest transformations don't begin with fireworks. They begin with a quiet shift in how you see yourself. Libra, you've spent so much of your life weighing decisions, navigating relationships, holding space for others, and choosing peace even when it meant swallowing your truth. But the season you're stepping into now is different. This isn't a brief moment of clarity or a temporary break from tension. What's unfolding is a foundational reset, a 20-year invitation to lead not from sacrifice, but from alignment. You're not just being asked to maintain balance anymore, you're being called to embody it, with strength, wisdom, and a deep understanding of your value. This next era isn't about proving yourself to anyone. It's about standing so deeply rooted in your own inner knowing that others naturally look to you for guidance, not because you're louder or more forceful, but because your energy becomes a steady compass in a chaotic world. You don't have to fix or carry people anymore. You only need to lead by example, by showing what it looks like to honor both self and others without betrayal to either. And that starts with choosing not to bargain for belonging, but to create spaces where mutual respect is the baseline. Opportunities will come, not just the ones that look impressive on paper, but the kind that feel right in your body. The kind that call you to express more of who you are, not less. Whether it's in your career, your finances, your relationships, or your creative pursuits, you are entering a chapter where authenticity will be your greatest currency. Maybe you've considered launching your own business, finally putting your voice into the world through writing, art, or teaching. Perhaps there's a new role or industry that aligns more with your heart than your history. Whatever it is, the door will open, but it will require you to walk through it with conviction. Financially, you're learning a new rhythm too. You don't need to hustle just to survive anymore. You're ready to shift from constant effort to strategic flow. This is your time to build income streams that support your lifestyle and freedom, not trap you in cycles of burnout. Think sustainability. Think creativity. Think ownership. The more you step into your authority, the more the universe will meet you there. And in your personal connections, the same principle applies. You don't need to perform for love or overfunction in relationships to feel safe. The right people will meet you at your energy. The ones who drain you, confuse you, or pull you out of alignment, let them fall away with love and clarity. You're not walking into these 20 years to repeat old lessons. You're here to write a new narrative. One where your heart is soft, but your standards are solid. From a spiritual perspective, this is the moment when you no longer search for healing outside of yourself. You've done the inner work. You've grieved, released, forgiven, and rebuilt. Now, you begin to live as someone who is whole. It's not about perfection, it's about integration. The lessons you've learned, the strength you've earned, the truth you've discovered, they're all inside you now. You don't have to keep waiting for permission to step into your power. You already have it. And remember, leadership doesn't always look like being in the spotlight. Sometimes it's the quiet person in the room who carries the deepest peace. Sometimes it's the one who sets boundaries with grace. Sometimes it's the one who simply chooses joy, unapologetically. That can be you. That will be you. You were made for this moment, Libra, not to balance for others, but to shine from within. If you've stayed with me this far, then something within you has already begun to shift. Maybe it's subtle. Maybe it's just a feeling in your chest or a softness in your breath. But I want you to know, what you're feeling is real. It's the quiet return to your own center. The realization that peace is not something you have to chase, or earn, or keep in place for others. Peace, Libra, is what naturally rises when you stop abandoning yourself. And that is your true power. You don't need to bend anymore to fit what others expect. You don't need to hold it all together to be loved. What if balance doesn't mean holding equal weight for everyone, but simply standing on a foundation that feels right for you? What if this whole time, the only person you really needed to say yes to, was you? So I ask you now, what would change in your life if you finally allowed yourself to live without constantly trying to keep everyone else comfortable? What doors would open if you stopped apologizing for needing time, space, clarity, or truth? What would it feel like to wake up and not negotiate your needs before your feet even touch the floor? These are not just reflective questions, they are soul invitations. And if anything resonated with you today, I encourage you to take one small action. Not to fix or prove anything, but simply to honor yourself. Maybe that means taking 10 minutes tomorrow morning just to breathe. Maybe it means journaling the 3 things you're no longer willing to carry. Or maybe it's as simple as speaking up, clearly, gently, and firmly, when your boundaries are being tested. You've learned the hard way that love without self-respect is not love. And peace built on self-denial is not sustainable. But now, you have the awareness to do things differently. You have the wisdom of your journey, the strength of your lessons, and the clarity that only comes from walking through fire and coming out softer, not burned. As you move forward, remember this: you don't have to fight for a seat at any table. You are the table. You set the energy. You hold the frequency. And those meant to walk with you, whether in love, in work, or in friendship, will meet you there. Fully. Freely. Without force. If this message touched something in you, share your energy with us below. Drop an angel number, or simply write, "I choose peace. I choose myself." Because when you name what you're claiming, you give it roots. And when we witness each other in this space, something powerful happens. We remember we're not alone. I want to take a moment to thank you, from the deepest part of my heart, for being here. For listening not just with your ears, but with your soul. Your presence, your likes, your comments, and your willingness to grow are what keep Zodiac Whisper Tarot alive and evolving. This channel isn't just mine, it's ours. A sacred circle of insight, encouragement, and transformation. So if you haven't yet, please subscribe, like, and tap the notification bell. Not out of routine, but as a way of saying, yes. I'm ready to keep showing up for myself. And as you close this video, carry this truth with you: peace isn't about keeping everyone else calm. It's about staying rooted in who you are, no matter the storm. And Libra, you are more rooted than you've ever been. This is your moment. Welcome to your next chapter.